and welcome to Borgcast 15.8, Picast number 8 with Anne-Marie and Peter.
Hello! Yes, we've had some...
Previously on Star Trek Picard.
Kestra's t-shirt, which I was thinking I recognise that logo from somewhere.
The same.
It's apparently in Klingon.
Oh.
And translated it says sex phases. It's Sex Pistols, basically, and it's their logo, isn't it? Oh. So whoever worked that out, well done. I saw it on Tumblr. What an Easter egg.
Wow.
We've also heard from Dory.
And she writes, I enjoyed this one. I guessed that Kestra's dad was Riker just before Troy walked out of the house. I enjoyed JP being reminded how to be Picard by Riker and Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Kestra even seemed quite genuine to me, just over-eager to talk and quite often put her foot in it. I'm fluctuating in my opinion of Agnes. She sort of seems to change her mind and therefore sides too easily. But then I find myself wondering if that just proves how open-minded she is. Or how mixed up.
Yeah, I think mixed up is probably more to the point, yes. Thank you, Dory.
Thank you.
We've heard from Martin on last week's episode.
Hello, Peter and Emery. It's Martin again with some thoughts on Picard episode 7, Generations. Except it wasn't Generations, of course, because we weren't in the Nexus. Or were we? But we weren't. Or were we? Who knows? I rather enjoyed this one. I suppose for some people it'll be a bit of a break because we kind of just spend the episode on the plane, don't we? What's Nephinus? I can't remember the name of it now. Before getting on with the main plot, but again, we still have the Romulans in pursuit and everything, so there's still a bit of jeopardy. And I quite enjoyed the stuff that was on board the ship, and with Dr. Girardi, kind of how she's coming to be, how she's seen the future, and with Admiral O, of course. But the question I'm kind of asking now is how much of this is true, and how much of it is believable, in that did the Romulans plant like a false version of the future inside her head, particularly just to help bring her around to their point of view, and they actually do want to get rid of all the synths? Or is this like a genuine fear that the rise of the synthetic life will lead to extinction of all sort of organic life in the galaxy? Something that they're desperately trying to stop. So it depends whether we're on the more kind of genocidal path, or they genuinely do feel that they're doing the right thing. And as we know, sometimes the worst people are the ones that are absolutely totally convinced that they're doing the right thing. But yes, I mean, the focus of this episode, of course, was Picard meeting up with some old friends. Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but no, of course not. It's William Riker and Deanna Troi. William Riker, of course, whose coming was foretold in the credits again, which is a shame. It would have been nice if that was a surprise, even though I suppose if you get your ear to the ground, you kind of know that he and Troi are back in the series for another appearance. And I think it worked very well. You can tell the old chemistry is there, and I really enjoyed the scenes between Riker and Picard, although I think once he enters that door at the first thing, I think he should have just said, "Hello, number one," rather than "Hello, Will." I think that would have been nice. And I did love Soji doing the old Data Ted head tilt as well. I thought was very nice. And of course, their adorable Moppet daughter. But there was a couple of things I did sort of pick up on about Pose as a newbie. I mean, did we know previously about the death of Troy and Riker's son? If not, that's a hell of a heavy thing to dump in the middle of a new episode. Also wanted Picard mention like a titanium heart or something he has, which I'm not too sure on the history of. Yes, I don't think there's an awful lot more I wanted to say about this one. Just that it was, again, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lovely episode. Enjoyed the stuff going on the ship, and at least we didn't get any Romulan incest this week, which is very thankful. But the death of Hugh as well. The poor Hugh. It was a shame to see him go. I don't know what's next for Elrond though. I have to admit, I did like the fade to black at the end of last week's episode, as he prepared to fight the Romulans. My friends choose to live, which I thought was a very effective ending. He seems to be just running around now, and I wasn't sure actually whether we'd see him again, whether we cut back to the Borg cube. But I guess time will tell. He certainly doesn't seem to be very treated very well by Picard. He seems to just be shouted at every turn. Okay, well that's me for now. I can't think of anything else to add, but I'll hopefully be back next week. Okay, thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, Martin.
Bye, thank you.
It was a surprise when Troy and Riker turned up, just because I thought they were turning up much earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Because I knew they were coming, because they were in the promotional material. And then after a while, I'd kind of expected them week in, week out, and they hadn't appeared. So I'd kind of forgotten. So that was quite a nice surprise in a way. Well, we didn't know that they had a son. In fact, they'd only just got married by Nemesis. So children weren't a thing yet.
No.
Which does make it kind of fair. I think it's very poignant, the fact that they've not only got 2 children, but one of them's died. You're kind of like, wow, we've missed a load, haven't we, here?
Yeah. I think, though, part of the point is that Picard has missed a load.
Yes,
though.
maybe it underlines that. Yeah, how out of touch he's been, possibly. And yes, the plastic heart was from season 2's, I think, Samaritan Snare. It's the one where he gets hurried off and has to have a replacement heart, and it's Pulaski doing the operation, much to his annoyance.
But then it comes up again, which is where I remember it from, in the one
Tapestry.
with Q. Tapestry.
Yeah, because it goes wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the one I remember. I mean, you're right, he does go off
Yeah.
at some point earlier, but that
Have it. That's right, to get it repaired.
Yes.
And but then there's problems later on. So yes, it's a recurring thing actually in Next Generation.
Yeah.
There you go. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And although again there's bits you don't know, it's interesting that as a relative newbie you still enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's good to hear.
Yeah.
We've also heard from Puri.
Hello, Args. Purry here, calling you from a lay-by near Ballachulish at about 10:30 at night. Don't ask, it's a night shift training thing, partly foiled by roadworks, but that's enough about my particularly odd situation when recording this, but if the sound quality sounds weird, that's why. So here's my Picast feedback for the episode Nepenthe. I do apologise again, I don't have much reference with me, so if I do mess up on names and that sort of thing, I do apologise. So to follow up on what you said in your cast, basically this was lovely. For the most part, the stuff with Riker and Troy and Kestra was just brilliant. I was bugged through the episode of where the reference for the son's name Thaddeus came from. I was finally reminded by looking through Twitter long enough that it was Riker's Civil War relative who is mentioned in the Voyager episode Death Wish. So and that's leading me on in a convenient and almost professional segue to what I like about how this show in general has done its deep cuts. So there are some very deep fanish cuts in these episodes. I don't think anyone would deny them. But what I like about the ones that they've done here are we essentially get references which, if you don't know them, it doesn't affect your enjoyment of the plot. Essentially, they're nice things for fans to go, Thaddeus Riker, Kestra, all these weird references. If you don't get them, they won't alter your enjoyment, but for fans are a nice thing, and this is the sort of good fan service. Again, there's a lot of people who complain sometimes that there's not enough fan service and why didn't they refer to this, and sometimes it's the cuts would be so deep, and if you made them plot points then they're just going to alienate people, and so I thought that was really good. We did also have the plot on, and again I'm really interested in the way this Agnes plot is going, because she obviously had some sort of almost traumatizing vision given to her by Commodore O, and I think, again, it is wondering, well, did that convince her? But she definitely didn't look willing when she had to eat the tracker, and I think the dose of radiation she gave herself is probably to wipe out the tracker, because possibly she thought initially that it would come to nothing, a bit like Raffi did, that the girl would be dead, and it turns out that they're not, and she's suddenly realising that she's in way overhead with people who are dangerous. And speaking of dangerous people, actually one of the things in this musically, because one of the things I've quite liked the music, although it's not been fantastic, but I did wonder if the theme was going to be used kind of differently throughout, and we did kind of see that in this episode, where it was almost used as a congratulations for young Elrond when he chose to stay on, which I thought was kind of neat. Sadly, they killed a lot of the XBs, including Hugh. That was disappointing. But it did make for a good death, and I suppose that's something you can always wish for. Although, sexy sibling what's her name, Rizzo, she's really going a bit comedy. She's almost cartoonish in her villainy now, and I think for the rest of the show it doesn't quite fit. She's wearing the big villain outfits. She's pontificating. I expect her to talk about her plan being so breathtakingly genius in its simplicity and that sort of thing. She's actually a bit of a letdown at the moment, if I'm honest. But other than that, there's some really interesting plot threads running, which I am enjoying. And overall, I think this was just a lovely episode. And one of the things I was discussing with one of my friends was that this seems to be Picard getting his groove back. So he starts off kind of almost embittered, old, and slowly through meeting people like Hugh, Riker, Troy, he's getting back to the Picard we remember, and I think that's possibly our thread for this. And one of the final things, I had one minor disappointment. I was really hoping when Elrond hit the Fenris Ranger call button, he would get a Power Rangers, which sadly we didn't, but I suppose we can't have everything. So, all it remains to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I'll hopefully join you for the next one. And with any luck, at some point I will get moving from this rather deserted lay-by, like I say, just north of Ballachulish. But until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Her ball was well in Ballachulish.
Yeah.
Blimey. Not quite Ballamory, but it's on its way,
that's
I'm
where
sure.
my brain went. Well, what's the story in Ballamory Roadworks, I think? Yeah, you're right. Rizzo did get a bit cartoonish.
Yes, I think she did in last episode. And it's interesting in tonight's episode, she's given a little more depth and 3 dimensions to his character, just a bit. But yes, she was very much panto villain in the last one,
And yes, it is Picard getting his groove back.
Yeah.
I think, but that's a good thing.
Right, hopefully that's us all caught up. We now move on to tonight's episode, Broken Pieces.
What you are about to experience will drive some of you mad. But those of you who endure will be stronger. Witness the devastation that must be prevented. Endure the admonition, if you can.
We open, well, it's got to be a flashback, hasn't it, every week. This time 14 years ago, and on Aya, which is the grief world. Good grief, Penfold. In confirmation of what Amory suspected. Yay! She saw this coming. Commodore O is revealed to be a Romulan all along.
Yeah.
Here she's narrating on behalf of the Jadvash, who it still sounds like a bad rash to me, but there you go. Who it turns out are also a female religious order. That's our second one of this series, interestingly.
Although she talks about our foremothers, which I quite like, because we always say forefathers without really thinking of it.
Bells are ringing with me with this, particularly with their costumes as well. June. David Lynch's in particular.
Yeah.
Well, that Mother Superior Helen Gaius business. Yeah.
Ooh,
I suspect they're all on the spice. That explains it all.
Yeah.
We see Ramda again, who we met previously as the XB that was a bit loco, along with Rizzo, who calls Ramda Auntie. And it turns out that she kind of adopted Rizzo and Narek. They see visions of synthetics as being behind everything. Some kill themselves in a variety of ways, including braining themselves with rocks.
I know. I couldn't believe that.
Blimey, Charlie. But not Rizzo, who's apparently made of sterner stuff. Then fast forward, and we see her talking to Ramda, congratulating her auntie on breaking a ball cube with the force of her despair. Yeah. Blimey. Marvin the paranoid android as a Romulan. Yeah. And it's nice to see she's got some fondness for someone anyway. She's not just evil, but she has a nice connection with her auntie. Yeah. Wow. Maybe clutching at straws, I don't know. But at least she seemed like a slightly more rounded out character to begin with in this story. Her men have tracked Elnor down, and they eventually overpower him. Then Seven turns up and gets a hug, because everyone gets a hug in this series.
Yeah, but I quite like it.
Comforting to know they've got a cure for coronavirus by now. Yes. Rios goes all woozy from having seen Soji. Raffi goes all paranoid, as she knows about Agnes. And they head for DS12, which is obviously sort of 3 along from DS9, sadly. And probably won't be an abandoned Cardassian station.
Well, it ought not to be.
Yes, really. They also hail Starfleet Command, so we get another meeting with Admiral Clancy in Picard's holographic study, which is all a bit surreal.
Yeah.
She tells him to shut the F up.
I like that. It's like Swear Trek became Trek.
Oh, blimey, there's an awful lot of swearing in this episode. Yeah. But she's sending a squadron of ships to help him out. Raffi goes to talk to Rios, but instead she ends up talking to the ENH, which gets a name, Enoch.
Yeah, as in coming out of ENH. They all their names all come out of what they are.
Yeah, it's not the greatest sounding Irish accent, I don't think, anyway. But
I think it's better than the Scottish one.
Oh, yeah. More. We have definitely heard better Irish accents in this series, although, of course, they've been Irish actors, so... It's odd that she makes that mistake, having already seen of a holographic crew look like Rios, but there we go. When he works out what the Conclave of Eight is, an octonarian star system, not an octogenarian star system, that would be like Bournemouth. She kisses him, which is sweet. 7 powers up the cube. We see it regenerating itself with sort of Borg inset things.
Yeah, I like that.
Well,
that was cool.
Rather better effects than we got back in Next Generation when they reversed bits being pulled apart, didn't they?
But they were kind of sort of beetly, weren't they? And I like that as an idea. Yeah, it was cool.
Picard tells Soji about Data, admitting he shared the android's lack of ability to deal with emotions, which is an interesting take. And I never particularly thought of Picard as emotionless. I mean, all right, he had his awkwardness around children, but...
Yeah, but no, he was standoffish, though, wasn't he?
Slightly, but you'd expect a captain to be like that, to be honest.
Not necessarily. I don't think we've necessarily seen it that badly in other captains. So I'm not sure that he necessarily struggled to process emotions, like he said, but I think he did struggle to share them. I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm. We then meet the emergency engineering hologram, which you already referred to. In a tribute to James Doohan, he has a very bad Scottish accent.
Yeah.
He helps her to work out the stars on the octogenarian system, as I'm now calling it, were artificially moved together, which is a hell of a feat of stellar engineering, up there with Omega, I think. But that's a whole other series. The hospitality program then tells us that Rios needs someone to talk to. The real Rios just tells us to pee off, though.
Yeah.
He's going through his Starfleet stuff, which include a picture of a Maddox-type android. So we can see where this is going, to be honest. The outline of his old ship looks rather like the Emmett Till from Season 8 Deep Space Nine on the What We Leave Behind documentary. This is the USS Ibn Majid, if I've pronounced that right, who's named after a 15th century Arabian explorer.
Ah.
7 talks about reactivating the Borg, but doesn't want to. She's worried that she won't want to let go.
And also, she does talk about enslaving them, doesn't she?
Raffi gets the holograms together to try and piece together what's going on with Rios, which is fun. Apparently he had some sort of breakdown after something happened to his captain, Vandermeer, and a girl called Jenna, who presumably is his Maddox-type android.
Well, isn't it Jana, not Jenna?
Yes, possibly,
Jenna is from Blake 7.
Yes. Agnes tells Picard about her meeting with O. It's all just loads of people talking this episode, and there's no way around this, including visions of Symphageddon, which has made her suicidal.
Suicide is painless. It brings on many changes, and I can take or leave it if I please.
Tune, I suppose, there.
Yeah.
Rios is listening to some on-the-nose blues music played on vinyl, for heaven's sake, which no doubt is back to being hip again, rather than its more natural state of being an incredibly fragile storage system that's just stupid, let's face it. I mean, every record's going to be scratched to crap by then.
Yeah.
I suppose he's probably replicating new ones, because that's sensible. Anyway, it's Solitude by Billie Holiday.
That's nice.
Yes, apparently Vandermeer was like a father to him, but he turned out to be a murderer. Then we get some Philip Glass type music playing as Agnes interviews Soji. I wouldn't trust her in a room with Soji at this point. Blimey. Apparently the captain was told to kill 2 passengers, otherwise his ship would be shot down, and then he killed himself out of guilt. And Rios confirms that the orders came from O.
Yeah.
7 connects with the cube through her clothes somehow. It's a bit weird. And then there's a really good close-up on her, though, as her sort of eyes go green.
Yeah.
And she starts speaking like a Borg.
And it's like she's becoming the queen, isn't she?
Yeah.
It's going into her spine.
Yeah, but weird. Rizzo seemingly empties the Borg into space. And it becomes apparent there's still some left, though, and she only just escapes by beaming out.
Well, they're XBs that are left, though, aren't they? They weren't the ones in the enclaves, because they aren't
I
fully
thought she'd
Borged.
shot all the XBs.
which I think she thought she'd shot all the XBs and she hadn't. To me, they looked like XBs rather than full bore.
Okay. Agnes apologises for being so murderous, and Raffi brings us up to speed on how the Jadvaj were behind the Synth Rebellion and about Jana, whatever we're calling her.
Jana, I think.
Yes, the Maddox type Rios had met. Soji then hijacks La Serena, having had a lot of memories unlocked, including how to use Borg warp corridors.
She basically does a data when his brain's been taken over by Sim.
Yeah, it does a bit, yes. But Rios manages to unlock his ship again by singing a Spanish lullaby.
Oh, there we are.
Picard tries to fly the ship off, but then admits he doesn't know how to.
I like
it's
that.
Really sweet. And it's played really well by Patrick Stewart as well. And then there's a very slow talky scene between Picard and Rios where Marta Batanides is name dropped. She was one of Picard's friends in Tapestry.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And then they head off for Soji's homeworld, still followed by Narek, whose ship decloaks.
So why was he waiting by the wormhole? How did he work that out?
No, he was following them. So when they go through the wormhole, he goes through it, I think. But supposedly he'd stopped following them because Agnes had destroyed the tracer. So I don't quite know what's going on there. But anyway,
I don't know.
Maybe it'll get explained. Or maybe
it
not.
won't. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, it's a bit of a letdown of an ending. It doesn't seem to have built up for anything. I mean, at one point it looks like Seven's activating the Borg is going somewhere, and that would be really impressive. But it just fades out, really, doesn't it? It doesn't really go anywhere.
Well, I don't know. I think you're supposed to think that Seven very nearly gets overpowered, and then she doesn't. And that may play out this season. It may play out in season 2.
I imagine it'll play out this season as she turns up to save the day in a big Borg cube, basically. I mean,
possibly.
It's an obvious way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, the hologram stuff is fun.
Yeah.
It's a weird mix because there was the scenes that played really light, and then other scenes where he's talking about his captain, killing himself, and they're all really dark. So it's a bit of a funny mix. It's a bit like when BSG tries to do comedy. It doesn't quite work a lot of the time.
Yeah. I don't know though. I mean, I think that scene is all right because they're all trying to piece everything together, but they don't have the full picture.
I like when they're all slapping their heads at the same time. It's kind of Python-esque, that, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, I like the effect of when they're trying to remember and their eyes.
And ultimately, this whole episode is like filling in the blanks to explain the plot, basically. And it's a shame they couldn't sort of spread that out a bit more because it's a bit sort of action-free, except for you got the 7 bits, but that doesn't seem to go anywhere. So, and then ends with a whimper rather than a bang.
Well, I don't know. It's just leading to something else.
But I think they needed more action and something else in this episode. But that, particularly coming after last episode, which was lovely, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, but was a very slow episode for talkiness. And this one's even more about, this is like sort of filling in the gaps sort of thing.
I think, for me, what got me was that when they're sort of having the conversations and whatever, some of it is unnecessary. Some of it you're sitting there going, yeah, but we know this.
Yeah,
do you know
exactly.
What I mean?
And they're repeating stuff again, which they were doing earlier in the season as well.
So I don't mind it if they're sitting down and having a conversation and something new comes up and you learn a new thing, fine. But they was telling you stuff mostly that you already knew. So not really... I wasn't a fan of that. Whereas some of the other scenes that were more talky, you were learning new things, and I didn't mind those. But I think the ones where they're repeating should have gone, and there should have been something else.
Yeah, definitely.
In their place. What? I don't necessarily know, but there should have been something that was different.
I mean, what would have been nice was to have shown us the stuff. Obviously it would have cost more money because they had to use a proper bridge set and stuff. But to actually shown us what happened on his ship would have been far more effective than you telling us about it. There we go.
Yeah.
Hey ho. So yes, a slight letdown this episode, but never mind. What do other people think?
We've heard from Doreen, who writes, I quite enjoyed all the emergency holograms in this one. The Scottish engineer was overdone, but relatively amusing. Patrick Stewart got to display his thespian skills with his speech about Starfleet betraying itself, the past, the future, and fear. To be totally honest, I'm a bit confused about the Zap Fash and the Octonary.
Well, it's this weird... So they discovered it, so it already existed. It'd been put together by some previous race or other. This weird, artificially created solar system of 8 stars with a planet in the middle or something. And then it's got this thing on it they discover which exposes what happens when simps of a suitable level of advancement are created, and apparently the whole, everything goes to heck. So they then swear that they're going to stop that happening again. So that's kind of what that's about.
Yeah, except did it just only ever happen to that one civilization?
This will happen before it'll happen again, sort of thing. I don't know.
Or is it that O is like Sarah Connor?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Slightly less kick-ass than Sarah Connor so far, but...
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? This is... Particularly we're thinking of her in Terminator 2.
Yes.
When she's all hell-bent on, no, it can't happen and we can't... Do you see what I mean? Is it the Sarah Connor making machine?
I don't know. Right. We've also heard from the Llama God.
Lamagaslag, Scottate, Fika, Tree, Yayik. You get a Jadvash, and you get a Jadvash, and everyone gets a Jadvash. Starting off this feedback, not with something about the actual episode, but because it's Star Trek related, I did just want to very briefly mention a couple of great things that happened in the last couple of days. The first is that I went to see a live screening of Star Trek 2, but it was also attended by one William Shatner, which was an experience. And the man in the flesh is pretty much everything you'd exactly expect William Shatner to be on stage. Take that as you will. Also, in a very bizarre and universe-threatening twist of fate, I finally got to meet Purry, who lives just up the road from me. So that was one of the more exciting things that happened that evening. But whilst watching Star Trek 2, one of the details that I did notice on the bridge of the Enterprise, there is a sign next to the fire extinguishers that says no smoking on the bridge at any time, which suggests that smoking is a thing that has happened in Starfleet, which may have gone away by the time of the Next Generation, but is certainly not a thing that didn't stop happening in the Federation. And so we come back round to Raffi, see I was getting somewhere, and the fact that she is smoking various things, various substances, isn't actually that out of place. So yes, it's in keeping, thanks to some signage from Star Trek 2. Back to the episode then. Yeah, this was a fantastic episode. One of the things I'm very grateful for last week's episode is that it happened in the first place. Given the sheer amount of drama and revelations this week, it was good that we had last week's nice bit of, loveliness really, and a bit of a breather, because this was a tense and brilliant episode. Since we mentioned her already, one of my highlights of the episode was Raffi going around and doing her bit of sleuthing, trying to piece the entire puzzle together. Even when she's not drunk, she remains a great watch, and seeing her interact with all the holograms was superb. I love how different each of the holograms was. I mean, yeah, I'm going to say right now, there isn't anyone in Scotland who really speaks with that sort of Scottish accent, but, if Captain Rios was walking off of old recordings of Montgomery Scott, then, he was pretty spot on, because none of the Scottish sound like a proper Scottish person either, but never mind. But yeah, the sequences of the holograms was fantastic. Santiago Cabrera doing such a great job doing the different personalities and making them all seem slightly different. It was really lovely to see, so I'm glad they're milking that one. And it was a nice counterpoint to the captain himself when we finally learn his tragic backstory and how he was drummed out of Starfleet. And as it turns out, as in all things in this episode, it seems everyone is connected. Yes, Admiral Lowe is a member of the Jadvash, so is Incest Sister, so is the crazy Romulan prophet. They're all linked together. So yeah, I guess we should maybe have seen this coming, but at least we get an explanation now of what the Jadvash is. When they started talking about an old repository of alien information, I did worry that they were going to go back to the sphere from Discovery, but no, it was something else. And so it's nice to see how everything's tying together, and it's interesting to know that Soji isn't the only one, that although she's had her twin sister, that clearly there were more of them, and also there were male ones as well, which looks a little like Andy Pelastity, so that's concerning. I think we have some questions to ask of him, especially with his interest on starships. Yeah, something suspicious going on there. The stuff on the Borg ship was also great this week. I experienced something that I didn't ever anticipate feeling, and that was sympathy for the Borg. Yes, I wasn't surprised to feel sympathy for the XP when they were being gunned down, but the moment when the Romulans jettison most of the hibernating drones into space, that was horrific, really. I guess it just shows what a good job the previous episode had done of making us consider them for their humanity, not necessarily humans, but you know what I mean, of their individuality and their status as actual living beings rather than just collective drones. Yeah, that work paid off here because, yeah, I did feel real sympathy for them. We also find out why Hugh was killed off last episode, and it was to give Seven something to do, so I wasn't unhappy to see her return. I was hoping she'd come back, and seeing her take on the role of the Queen is pretty badass, but still, a bit of a shame that Hugh wasn't there, because really, he could have taken the place of Elrond, really, because Elrond didn't really get a lot to do this episode, apart from stand around and be a conduit for exposition. Also lovely at the end of the episode to see the new Romulan warbirds up close. Did we see them in the first episode? I can't remember now. But yeah, these are great little designs, and I love the little tail feathers they've kind of got sticking out the back of the ship. But really what I appreciated most about this episode was Picard's speech, which was humorously interrupted towards the end. But his speech explained that it doesn't matter that the Romulans, the Jadvash, have infiltrated Starfleet and even sacrificed their own kind to ensure that the artificial life forms didn't continue to evolve. Whilst that was a nice tying up of plots and things started to make sense now, it was nice to see that Picard states that that doesn't excuse what actually happened with the Federation. And that's good from both a storytelling point of view, because it doesn't mean that there's some moustache-twirling bad guy behind the scenes being responsible for everything, but it also highlights from a more practical point of view that yes, even though they were the ones given the directive, it was everyone else carrying out the orders that were responsible. Everyone else is culpable in the tragedy that unfolded. And again, that's a message that we can take from the real world. Whether you think that the Russians influenced the US or UK elections or Brexit or all of that, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the people involved and the people in charge still went through those things anyway. People under them went through following orders, and it's something we need to bear in mind as we go forward, especially with the threat of coronavirus around us right now, with what looks like darker days to come. It's not just enough to be able to point and say, these bad guys made me do it. No, you've got to take responsibility for your own actions, and Picard calling that out is wonderful. And yeah, this is Star Trek. And it's a Star Trek that also ends on a very nice tense note as they leap into the unknown. No, I'm not going to start singing that song from Frozen, but if you want to play on that, that's fine. So everything seems to be falling nicely into place now, and with 2 episodes left to bring the story to some sort of conclusion, well, I'm still convinced we're going to end on a cliffhanger. I'm definitely very excited, and I really want to see next week's episode now, which is probably the first time that's actually happened in Picard. Yeah, I really want to see the story through to the end now, so yeah, can't wait for next week. And I will, of course, be looking forward to finding out whether everyone's as excited as I am. And until next week, glory to you and your cast.
Thank you, sir.
Did you think the male android looked like Andy Palastides?
I think we got to see the male android.
You saw the drawing of it?
No, that was Rios. You said it was the male android that was drawing the picture.
Oh, okay.
So you couldn't be in it. That was Rios and yeah,
okay,
Jana.
Fair enough.
But young Rios, because we see a picture of young Rios, photo that is.
Yeah.
Which looks weird. I don't know whether they've photoshopped it or what, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I like Raffi as well as a character.
Yeah, she's good. She gets to do a lot of legwork in this one, doesn't she? Mm. I like the characters. I just don't like the fact that we they kept repeating stuff and it didn't feel particularly that we're going anywhere, because like the start of the episode they've left the Borg ship and at the end they've still not got to their destination. It's like, you know, it's this problem where they make these seasons too long these days, so that everything's padded out just to eke it out into what they think of as a full-length season. I'd much rather they make the season shorter and make it more fast-paced and interesting, but there we go.
Okay. What did you think of the new Romulan warbirds, and have we seen them before?
Yeah, they're okay. I wouldn't say that they're as distinctive and interesting as the warbird of the original series, certainly, that we saw earlier, and of Next Generation, and to have the interesting hollow bit.
Yeah, I like that hollow bit.
Yeah, that made him quite distinctive, didn't it?
It did.
But on the other hand, you can see how they're a kind of advancement on the Nemesis type design. So it's a logical progression, just perhaps not as interesting as I would like. And certainly not as interesting as that Cobra head ship we saw last week. So.
I like that one. So what does he mean about the tail feather?
Well, there's a bit at the back that does, sort of shaped a bit like a tail feather. I mean, quite what, use that would be in space, I do not know, but they've gone for it as a stylistic thing.
Maybe they just like the song.
Bend over, let me see you shake your tail feather. Bend over, let me see you shake your tail feather. Come on, let me see you shake your tail feather. Come on, let me see you shake your tail feather. Twist it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, baby.
Maybe they do. But clearly Lama was enjoying it a whole lot more than us, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's good. Everybody enjoys different sorts of episodes, so as long as it's different again next week, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we'll be recording a little later next week because of Mothering Sunday weekend goings on. Monday the 23rd is when we'll be recording our coverage of the next Picard episode, number 9.
Yeah.
Oh, nearly there now. 2 episodes to go. As long as they don't spend the next episode just travelling there, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Feel free to feedback on any of the episodes we've looked at so far. And we'll catch you then. Cheery bye.
Bye.
Well, I heard about the fella you've been dancing with all over the neighborhood.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
Twist it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, baby. How it go loop-de-loop. Shake it out, baby. How it go loop-de-loop. Bend over, let me see you shake your tail feather. Bend over, let me see you shake your tail feather. Come on, let me see you shake your tail feather. Come on, let me see you shake your tail feather. Twist it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, baby. How it go loop-de-loop.
Shut it down!